Now we're going to go to pattern recognition. You've seen some patterns here. These are 10, maybe 10 or 9 of the pictures I have in this book, one of the books I wrote called Love Cycles, The Science of Intimacy, showing you some of the cycles in nature. This is not my work. This is amazing work of other people. This is an array of 25,000 menstrual cycle lengths of women, and the data were collected over 3 generations of women. And what the data, this was Treloar's major work and published in 1974. I looked at that and I said, oh my goodness, look at that pattern. And what he was showing was that puberty, the first 7 years of menstrual cycling, and premenopause, the last 7 years, have a wide range of this. The vertical axis on the left side is cycle length, 85 days, 80, 75, down to about, looks like the lowest dots are around 16. Every 16 days a woman's bleeding. And as you move into the years of peak fertility, you notice that the cluster of data get closer to the 29.5 days. He didn't consider that the reason that the women were having 29.5 days had anything to do with their sex life. But what he showed was the pattern. And perimenopausal, the same thing in reverse. I found when I went out to Stanford to set up the Stanford menopause study that women who were perimenopausal, meaning they were approaching their menopause, who had regular sex, did not, they had 29-day cycles. It delayed the onset of menopause to have regular sex. So that's the first one. Let's go to the next one. This was the same pattern. This is the first coital age by diagnostic condition of that first study I showed you. You see the 800 on the x-axis, the 792 women. The width of the bar is the group. And so this is this is primary infertility, the 2 with the highest age. This is the routine gynecology with the lowest. But the vertical axis is not years of age, it's chronological age since the first menses. This is growing up age. The mean gynecologic age of a woman who's 5 means she's been menstruating for 5 years. That for 6, she's been menstruating for 6 years. And what we found was that women who had waited till after their 7th year of menstruation were in the primary infertility group. It suggested a critical period of 7 years. That's the same 7 years that you saw in the Treloar data. If you go back one, that's a 7-year puberty period and the 7-year. There's something magical about the 7. Let's go to 2 more. Keep going. This is the magnificent structure of a woman's pelvic organs, and it shows you vaginal, cervical, endometrium, the lining of the uterus, and it's in exact proportion of a fertile age body. You see the tiny little ovaries with an egg, and the fimbria of the fallopian tube suck out the egg. They actually, we've seen movies of this where it's almost like a vacuum cleaner pulling the egg out of the ovary into the fallopian tube, where if a sperm has gone up and is waiting, he's got 3 days to wait, there's the potential for a fertility that will land in the nest of the lining of the endometrium. It is absolutely mystical, the exquisite symmetry of a female body and the cycles. Let's go to the next one. This is a cross-section of a slice of an infant girl's ovary. A baby girl is born with all the eggs she will ever have. Contrast to men, men produce sperm every day into old age. Women are born with baby girls are born with, it's an estimate of about 500,000 eggs in each ovary, about 1 million eggs. So this is an infant girl, and this is one big egg. This is, what you're looking at here is a follicle with the egg in the middle, a follicle. These are lots of follicles, cellular layers. You can read about that if you want in Love Cycles. Go to the next one, please. This is a 30-year-old woman's ovary, drastically different. Let's go to the next one. This is the cycle of a fertile woman. And it shows you lots of things that are happening across the time of the month. I want to take a quick course through what's happening. This is what's happening in the endometrium, the lining of the uterus that I just showed you. At the center part of the uterus, the womb is just before menses. It's thick and there's a big nest. It breaks off and bleeds out. And therefore the womb lining is very thin. It builds up, gets big, and another cycle starts. That's the repeating cycle of a fertile cycle of a woman. Meanwhile, in the ovary, one follicle grows and grows and grows. The egg is going to leave. I showed you the fimbria that'll pull it out. This tissue will reform into what's called a corpus luteum, a yellow body. Corpus is body, luteum is yellow, and early anatomists saw it. That's the manufacturing site for progesterone. It gets bigger, it grows for 7 days. It gets so big that it fills half the ovary, and then it starts shrinking, and the progesterone levels start dropping. And above it are what would, if you took blood every day and said how much estrogen and how much progesterone is in the blood of this fertile woman, you'd see this repeating pattern. 2 peaks of estrogen and only 1 peak of progesterone. No detectable progesterone before ovulation. And in the luteal phase, lots of progesterone. And those 2 are hormones that I don't have time to tell you about from the pituitary. Let's go to the next slide. This is about men. How do men's testosterone, men and women are very different. You probably all know that. And I think it's viva la difference, it's spectacular. Men's testosterone levels change dramatically with age. This shows you from a 10-year-old to a 90-year-old lifetime. What's the plasma level of testosterone? And the bars are the average, and look at the enormous variation of why do some men continue to have very high testosterone as they age, and others have very low as they age. It's an interesting pattern. Let's see what's next. And here's the annual cycle of births in the United States, in Louisiana, Maine, South Carolina. And what it's showing is there is a cyclic average annual cycle that has peaks and troughs that are the same no matter where they are, but more elevated in some places than others. Let's go to the next one. And there is another picture of the phenomenal hormone cycles and fluid secretion from the cervix. The same cycle you see there, about 4 cycles, 4 repeats. This is an amazing pattern that's going on day by day. So if you want to know why you're moody or why you're brighter or why you're sleeping better, it's right in here.